Welcome to Sisters in Arms. I'm Carrie Ann Alclair.
And I'm Renee Gagne. Together we serve as a Second Amendment resource for our communities.
And today we're having Mary Forgues from Connecticut on. We're talking about the dangers of gun storage laws, and we're doing it through Zoom. So here we go. Mary, thank you so much for joining us today. We're very, very happy to have you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are? I know you are the state director for the formerly known DC project, now Women for Gun Rights. I still can't get used to the new name. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I miss you guys a lot, by the way.
I know.
We're like one state away, and I feel like we don't take advantage of that. We need to see each other more often.
Yep.
So like you said, I'm the state director for Connecticut for Women for Gun Rights, as you ladies are. I also do a million different other things, like all of us advocates typically do. So we always do so many different, many different hats. So I'm a emergency dispatcher for police, fire, and medical. So experienced on certain types of calls that we might go on that are firearm related calls or domestic types of calls, violent calls. I am a mental health crisis aide, where I help people that are going through a mental health crisis situation, and I'm able to walk them through it and give them the correct resources and get them the help necessary. I am a featured writer for a national magazine called Armed Lifestyle Magazine. I'm a small business owner. So I have a marketing company, and I also am a co-founder of a firearm training company here in Connecticut called Paravant Group, which we haven't been able to do much of in the past year or so, just because I've been tied up with a million other things. Yeah. And then additionally, as a lot of us women are, so I am a mom. I have two teenagers. I have a soon to be 18-year-old, soon to be 14-year-old. I'm rounding up because I love them, but I am excited for them to be adults too. So that's why I round their age up. So that's what I do. A little bit of everything.
Wow. Now, I know that we invited you on our show because you have a story on how you saved your family. And before we go into that, I always feel as though when we talk to we've actually had a couple other ladies on talking about their situation and a certain event that happened in their lives that changed who they are today. And I always feel bad asking you guys to relive that moment. But I also think it's so crucial and so important that people understand what happened and how we can prevent that from happening to someone else by training and understanding the laws and understanding how some laws affect us, and how we have to advocate and fight for that. So I'll let you go to it.
Yeah, Mary, I think your story is so important because the opposition has no idea the ramifications of government mandatory safe, storage laws with firearms.
Right.
And your story is the epitome of why they're so dangerous.
Right.
So please share with us.
I agree with you. So I won't go so far in depth with it, but I'm going to give you guys the gist of it. So in November of 2019, it was a Friday night. My home was broken into, and I refer to him as a crazed man because he was on drugs. He, when you looked at this guy, he didn't look like he was actually there. I'm going to say, because like mentally there, like his eyes, he was just very blank, and you could tell that he was there for a violent purpose. So, broke into my home. And when I heard him coming through the back door, I ran downstairs. I thought actually that a mug rack had fallen off of the kitchen wall, because previously, like, I suck at hanging things up. So there was a mug rack that I had hung up twice, and twice it had fallen off the wall. So I thought that it was the mug rack falling off the wall again. That's how much of a commotion that it made, that it like shook the house. So I ran downstairs, and in the kitchen, this guy was standing in the kitchen. And again, just that complete blank stare. And he was rambling about a piece of paper that he needed, and something about how he was that he had been recently diagnosed with like liver cancer. Like, he had cirrhosis, so he had liver cancer. So he was rambling about this. I realized obviously that this was not a healthy situation, and that he had poor intent, evil intent, not just poor, just evil intent. And I retreated to my bedroom which was back on the second floor, because when the incident, when he came into the house, I was on the second floor. I had just gotten home from work. My daughter was at the movies with her friend. They had just left probably like a half hour previous to this happening. And then my son was at a sleepover that night. So I had been upstairs in my room, texting my boss, thanking him for like for that new job that I had for that week, because it was like my first week working in the gun store in Wallingford. And so then my phone had been upstairs. So when he broke into the house, my phone was upstairs, my gun was upstairs, everything was upstairs. Again, I wasn't expecting that somebody was breaking into my house. That's where we feel our safest, or we're supposed to feel our safest. But now I'm realizing that's also where we're most vulnerable in our homes. So again, so I had ran upstairs into my room, and smart thing, because a lot of times I look back on this and I'm like, this is what I could have done differently. So I should have immediately ran to my gun. And I didn't. I ran to my phone because, at the time I'm thinking somebody's going to help me. I don't have to do this on my own. Somebody's going to show up. Somebody's going to help me. So I ran to my phone. And at the time, I didn't know that you could press just the side buttons on your phone and bring up that emergency screen and be able to call 911 pretty quickly. So instead, I'm thinking like, all right, I have to exit out of the text that was open up the other app for the phone, open that, and then dial 911. And there's so many different prompts that go with that. So what I did was I pressed the at the top of the iPhone screen, there's an option just to call the person that you're texting. So I pressed that, and I attempted to get this person, my boss, to answer the phone. And actually, let me rewind a little bit. So when I ran up into my room, he ended up coming up the stairs, and I was trying to use my mental health advocacy, my words, my verbal judo. And I said, hey, let's go downstairs and figure this out, because I needed him to get away from me. Right. So this is when I ran up the stairs, and I tried to get him to go in front of me, and he kind of put his hand like this, telling me to like go in front of him. Like he wanted me to go in front of him. And I was like, this does not feel safe. I knew he was going to push me down the stairs. Like you get that, the heebie-jeebies, like the spidey senses, and you're like, there's definitely, again, evil intent here. So that's when I retreated back into my bedroom, and I went to, I shut the door very quickly. And the same time that door was hitting, the door hinges to shut, and I slide the lock shut, and I could hear and feel his body slamming against the door. He immediately wanted to gain entry into that bedroom. So that's where I ran across the room, picked up my phone off the bed, went through the process to call for help. And I could hear the phone ringing. And at the same time, it took probably, I'm going to say it had to be like 7 or 8 times about that it took for him to slam his body against the door, and he broke in through that lock. Later on, when the police had come, the lock was actually on the other side of the room. So there was amount of force to break it off the hinges. And I have pictures of that I can share with you guys sometime, but to break that lock off the hinges, and the lock ended up on the other side of the room. So he breaks in. I'm in the process of trying to call for help, and the person I was calling did not answer. It ended up going to voicemail. So this guy that broke into my home, he immediately, as soon as he comes in the door, rushes over, gets on top of me on my bed, which I've learned that the position that he was in was one of the most vulnerable positions, because I'm laying on my back. His legs are like on each side of my torso, and just had complete control. Like his weight was on my body. I didn't have much strength or much opportunity to fight him off. I didn't have the education to either. So he starts choking me, hits me in the face, and his hands are around my neck. And at that time, my right hand was off to the side holding onto my phone. My left hand, I'm trying to at that point, I just needed air. I was trying to just breathe. I wasn't even thinking about the part where, hey, I have to live. It was breathing. So I'm trying to pry his fingers off of my throat. And when he heard the voicemail pick up on the phone, then it's kind of like, I don't know, it got his attention. So he turns, and he's trying to get the phone out of my hands. So his body weight shifted to my right, his left side, where he's trying to get again to my phone, trying to pry the phone out. And his right forearm ended up going onto my neck. So his body weight was still on my neck, but I was able to breathe a little bit more, just the way that his arm was positioned. and he was trying to pry the phone out of my fingers. And I was thinking, I don't care if he breaks my fingers. I'm not gonna, like, this is my lifeline at this point. I'm not gonna let go of this phone. But then I also realized his body weight with it being shifted, I had an advantage. So I started punching him over and over again in his right rib cage. So with my left hand, I was punching him over and over again. And then at the same time, I dropped the phone between the bed and the wall, because I knew at that point his focus was more so, how can I not have a witness? So his focus was to get that phone, hang up the phone, so nobody else is aware of what's going on. So I dropped it. When you throw a ball for a dog and you want them to go, go get it, so I dropped it, and between me punching him and his body weight shifting to get that phone, I was able to get out from underneath him. I ran across the room, opened the top drawer of my dresser, and was able to pull out my firearm, turned it around, and aimed it at him. And one of the things that I was asked after this incident multiple times is, what was the look on his face? Because that's, people are curious about that. So what did he say? What did he look like? And he had said, "Are you going to shoot me?" And I don't remember the look on his face, because, I'm staring at my front sights. I knew that his torso was right behind those front sights, and I was ready to kill him. And he asked me a second time, "Are you going to kill me?" And he kind of like laughed and mocked me about it, when like, "You're not really going to do this." And I said, if you stand up, I'm going to shoot you. And at that point, I realized that the door was closer to me on my left. So I retreated out the door, made a super juvenile mistake where I ran to the first safety, what I thought was safety, which is the room right across from my bedroom, which was a very small bathroom. And as soon as I got in there, and, gun still in hand, and I obviously didn't have my phone, because he had my phone, because he picked it up, he had took it off the ground. And as soon as I slid that lock in the bathroom across from my bedroom, I realized it's the exact same lock that he had just broken through. It was like a brass, lock that slid over. So I was like, he could break through this lock. So I was in complete fear, and I thought that he was going to come at me, but I could hear, again, because he was on drugs, he was intoxicated, and I could hear him mumbling to himself in my room still, and I could tell that there was a distance between where I was at that point and that he was still in my bedroom. So I cracked open the bathroom door, realized I had that advantage, and middle of November in New England, with shorts and a t-shirt, barefoot, with my gun in my hand, I ran down the stairs out my front door to my neighbor's house and begged for my neighbors to call the cops. So that is the story. That's it.
Ugh.
Now, Mary, I had a whole plan in my head of how I was going to respond to your story, and I can't. I have no words. Like,
No,
I can't.
I have no words either.
I feel like God puts us in the path of people for a reason, and I'm so thankful to know you, because some of your rookie moves would totally be my rookie moves today, even with the education that I have, because we just assume that we're going to be safe in our homes. We live in towns where crime doesn't happen, invasions don't happen, and none of us are immune. None of us are exempt from any of that, ever, 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 no matter who we are, how smart we are, how rich we are, how pretty we are. It doesn't matter. That no one is exempt from this. It is so important to get educated. And sorry, I feel like I'm digressing, but I just, looking forward in 2024, my heart goes out to these ladies who, if you don't want a firearm, that's fine, but you need to be educated.
You need to
right?
figure out the best way for your.
Sorry, I totally digressed off the topic.
No.
So, okay, let's reel it back.
No.
We have such a short time. So the gun laws, in this country, everybody wants safe storage gun laws. We're going to keep people safe by storing our guns safely. But in my head, because I know what I know, what's safe for me isn't safe for you. You don't have children. You have no one in your home that you need to keep a gun away from. I have trained children that would never touch my gun. They are avid shooters. So we're all in different spots. And as a parent, we need to be responsible. Just like I keep the knives away from my kids when they're little, I keep hot candles away. I keep, that's our job. That's our responsibility as a gun owner. That's how it should be.
And I don't think people realize the importance of knowing how to protect yourself until they hear stories like yourself. And I every time I hear your story, I always get choked up because
Thank you.
the strength that it must take you to tell that story is incredible and brave. And I appreciate that. But going back to the safe storage laws, because I know that Connecticut, like, I know now you guys in 2019 that passed, and we've had it, I don't know how long we've had it, but we have it here in Massachusetts. And the only thing that we can do is pogo, pants on, gun on, until you go to bed, or you have a storage unit that is easy access. You know, quick in and out, whether it's a thumbprint, push button, whatever it may be. And it's unfortunate that we have to regress, you know, to that.
So I have two questions, and I know we're pressed for time. One, do you feel that you would be here today if your gun was locked up the way Connecticut mandates you to?
No, I wouldn't have. That was my saving grace. That was the tool that I needed. If I had a hammer in my room, I probably would have attempted to use a hammer, but I didn't have a hammer, so I had a gun. And
thank God for that.
but I found the most effective tool that was going to help me in that moment and make sure that, again, when my daughter comes home, that she's not going to be that next victim, that she's not finding her mother lifeless, and that she's not facing the same type of brutality that I was about to face. So whatever tool is necessary to make sure that that doesn't happen, and it happens to be my gun, then yes, then I'm going to use it. So no, if my gun had to be locked up, which I will say it was, so there was a law in effect at that time. It was Ethan's law, so it did go in effect that May of 2019. I was not aware of that, and at the same time, I had just gotten home from work. So that's why my gun wasn't locked up. I typically would lock up my guns. Like I'm a responsible gun owner. It's not where I just leave my guns laying around. But I would not be here. I wouldn't be talking to you guys, and we wouldn't be friends. So.
Well, that brings up a really good point. How are we supposed to know as gun owners when the legislation changes? I mean, you know, when you drive a car and they pass, you brought this up, a seatbelt law, you have billboards everywhere, buckle up, it's the law.
Right.
You never, ever in the history that I know of, is there ever a sign that says, store your guns, it's the law, lock your guns up in your
Be a
home.
responsible gun owner.
There's never
Educate yourself.
anything about guns. It's like, we're not gonna talk
No.
about it,
No.
and it won't exist.
And there, not to mention, real quick, because I want to talk more about what, how you feel about it. But in 2014, there was a bill here that passed where we were supposed to have PSAs, public service announcements regarding gun safety and stuff. And we don't have to go into details. Never happened.
Yeah, never
It didn't
happened.
happen.
Never,
You
ever
know, so
happened.
it's tough because, you know, I think these laws are unconstitutional, absolutely 110%. But so when you went through this, after that, instead of going backwards, you went fast and furious forward and educating yourself and women and being part of the DC project. I know you joined my DC project by accident. That's how we met.
I did.
But how do you feel like it's changed you? And
It changed even my career. I was in the food and beverage industry before, and even though I was a huge advocate for mental health and people struggling with even with drug and alcohol abuse, right? I changed career fields because I realized I wanted to be more on a first responder part of it. I wanted to be the person getting that phone call that they received from me and talking them through it, because I obviously have experience, and there's value in that experience. I would say you have two different routes that you could go down. You can either you could be a victim or you could be a survivor, and that's pretty much it. And I choose to be a survivor. I don't like there's nothing against people that choose the victim route, because everyone deals with everything differently, and eventually they will be a survivor. They're going to get there. But because of my own life experiences previously, not that there's a huge traumatic background or anything, but because I understand like the reality of mental struggles, and I understand the psychological aspect of it and also the chemical aspect of the substances being involved, I was able to probably, process it a little bit quicker and be able to be like, all right, well, this is how we're going to do things differently. This is how we're going to be able to make an impact. And I do want to say one of the things is that like a lot of people on the left side, they'll say that, they use victims of violence where a firearm is used. I don't want to say gun violence, so violence where a firearm is used. They'll use those victims as the poster child for their agenda. And I don't think that they're realizing that people like myself that survive through this, that you become an advocate and you're affecting so many other lives on a positive level from this by being able to share your story, but also provide the education, provide the resources. And there's actually, a very positive outcome from this. It doesn't have to be negative.
Even how you, like on your lower third, it says your name and what you are. Never do you say a violent crime victim. You're a violent crime survivor. See how the verbiage just turns it around to a positive thing?
Exactly.
I do. I see that with these anti-groups. They exploit their women that have been through this situations, and they're victims forever and ever and ever. They're victims. And I love how you turn that around. You're a survivor.
And I think that's why I like the DC project or Women for Gun Rights, because we show survivors,
Right.
We explain to others how you can survive,
right?
Meet this survivor.
Because
learn from it.
Right. Because we know that you have the right to protect yourself and to defend yourself. That's a basic human right. So whether it's with a knife, pepper spray, a gun, whatever, like you need to be trained, and we support all of that. And that's what I love about the DC project, not to go on a Women for Gun Rights
rant, but I think it's so important, because don't you feel that like every year when we go to DC, it's like a family reunion. It really truly is. And then when we all leave, I'm like,
I know.
Did we stay another day?
You know what else I love about this story, as sad as, the whole thing, you wish it never happened, but a lot of good points came out of it. When you drew your gun, you didn't shoot him, right? Because we're trained to stop the threat. We're not trained to kill. We're trained to stop the threat. Sometimes your words can stop, right? I'm going to go get my gun. Sometimes they'll run away with just your words, right? Your words are a weapon, like you said. And then if that doesn't work, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
So the fact that you had restraint and you knew, like, I don't have to kill this person. I just need to stop the threat and survive. That's all I have to do.
Yep.
I say that often is because people think like, and like you're saying, like, yes, we're trained. I'll be honest, at that time, all I had was my NRA certificate training. Like that's all I had for training. I didn't have additional training. But I will say morally, as human beings, as responsible gun owners, the reason why we went through the process to get that permit is because we're good people, right? And we just want that fighting chance. So we don't have the intention on taking a life. Even in that moment, even when just seconds previously I could have been dead, then I still was like, you know what? I still don't want to take somebody else's. I don't want that on my conscience. I don't want to affect their family. I don't want that, we're living in this house for the next few years, and I don't want my kids to have to remember that somebody died in this house. Like, I just want to live. That's my only goal here. So, and I think as responsible gun owners, as good people, as moms and dads and, decent human beings, like that's what we're trying to do. We just want to live. We want our people, our family to live, our friends to live, and for the other person to just stop and like not attack us. Like
stop and get help. Stop and get help, right? Because
exactly,
when you break it down, all these millions of criminals that do these things, so many of them are under the influence of something, or they have mental illness so many times. And I lost my thought. Lost my thought.
Mental illness.
1 minute left. Yeah, I mean, it's the root of the problem, and we say it all the time, right? We need to address mental illness. We need to address the drug situation in this country, the alcoholism, just all of it, and it just doesn't. It doesn't get addressed.
And you know what you said earlier, that we're like so close. We've got to promise that we need to get together. We got to get together, and we got to advocate together, and we got to work together.
Oh, I know
You
what
know?
it was, Mary. I know what it was. I remember it now. A lot of people on the opposite side would say, well, that's just, a story that doesn't happen all the time. Thousands of times a year, many
times.
thousands.
Like it's right. I believe the statistic that, Beth Walker had brought to our attention a few years ago is like 2 million lives a year are saved and estimated from use of firearms. My story wasn't, my incident isn't involved in any statistic. Like that was never put into a category saying like,
Well,
hey,
that's what I mean, right? Thousands of people have used the gun, never discharged anything, just drew it. That statistic is nowhere.
And I know we're running out of time, but the worst part about it is, I think if I remember correctly, he never served any time, did he?
He didn't. He was in the process of, like, there was an ongoing court case, but because this happened in November of 2019, then it ended up getting pushed off from COVID happening at the beginning of March. Like he had a first court date that February, and then he had continued court dates because of COVID. And then he ended up dying. I'm going to say, thankfully, he ended up dying in April of 2021 up in.
And that just enrages me, because there are so many women that have been attacked or in domestic violence situations, and their attacker is back out on the street again. And that's why it's so crucial. Yep, go on.
Real quick, I'm going to tell you. So everyone says get a restraining order. Okay. So after this incident happened that night, he gets arrested. He ends up bonding out. His family bonded him out. So when he's able to bond out from that incident, then they give him a conditions of release, which is essentially a restraining order, a protective order. So they give him a protective order saying you cannot go back to the victim's house. And he came back to my house. He was arrested. I fell asleep around like 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. And around 5:30, I get a message from the police department saying, just let you know, we arrested him again. He was sitting on your front steps. He was at your house, sitting on your front steps. The restraining order is not a thing. It shouldn't even be part of the conversation because it doesn't do anything. And yeah, I wanted to point that out.
Mary, when I had to go to court for the only time in my life to get a restraining order on a coworker, we were fitness instructors together at a gym, and things got really sideways. The point where he took his car and came towards me in a parking lot after a shift at work at midnight. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I went to court. They granted the restraining order, and the judge said to me, this is a piece of paper. This will not save your life. Those were the exact words from the judge.
Right.
And that was the moment that I knew I was going to become a gun owner, because a single gun,
chills.
I don't talk about it often, but that is how my journey really started. And sadly, it takes something like that to spark a lot of people, right? A lot of women, I think. I don't think a lot of women just go out and say, hey, I just want to become a gun owner. Lots of times it's sparked by fear, or, I need to protect myself. I can't fight off a 300-pound man.
And I can't believe we're out of time, but I can't thank you enough for joining us today with Sisters in Arms. I hope that people really take this story and learn from it and be better at being their own first responders, and get some training.
Yeah, Mary, can we have you back on to talk about WAFT and all your amazing training with some videos and pictures and the awesome stuff that you guys are doing, man? It's awesome.
Absolutely. And I think we can continue this conversation sometime too, because there's so much more we could have dove into with this. We're obviously very passionate about these things. So yeah, I say that we continue this conversation and get further into it for sure.
I love it. Let's do it next month.
Yeah, can we do it next month? Soon. Yeah,
I'll come up to you guys if you want.
Oh, that would be good.
Maybe you can even show us some techniques, like stand up and show us something.
Hey,
right?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
I love it.
It's gonna be awesome.
Wait, that's going to be an hour-long episode.
Okay. All right.
Two-parter.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye.